that's saying elite capture.
Ordinarily, when the government of Ghana, with the greatest of respect, is going about its transactions and goes to Parliament and gets approval, it does not necessarily go out there to consult CSOs.
Meanwhile, Imani Africa is questioning the quality of scrutiny government did to the deal before approval.
If it belongs to your father and your mother, you can do that. But this belongs to the country. So go and set up your own private business and then go and list it the way you want to list. And nobody will ask you any questions.
And as Ghana prepares to reopen its international airport in less than 24 hours, we hear a justification on why our land and sea borders remain shut to human traffic.
The international airport systems and the risk levels can be managed. That is why this has happened. When we get to a point where we are confident that for the land border the same can happen, a decision will be made there.
Meanwhile, the National Association of Private Schools are lashing out at government over failure to consult widely on decision to suspend academic calendar until January 2021.
And in business, hoteliers see staff laid off being recalled following plans to reopen the Kotoka International Airport for international travels.
And Amnesty International blames recent wave of attacks on alleged witches on government's lazy approach in dealing with such crimes in the past. We have the latest update on the police in the area as well.
We are closer to the 5 suspects who we are looking for now. It doesn't need any ransom figure to be put on them. No.
That and more here on Newsnight. You may want to join us with your thoughts and comments. It's via WhatsApp on 0244 340 437. I am Emefa Apawu.
And my name is Mensah.
Look at you, the big boss.
You know they hear.
You know they fear who?
Until somebody says, I will tell your mother.
That's why we say wear a mask, or else
we will call your mother.
Hey, why are you disgracing me? Why your mask?
Wear it for her. Wear it for me everywhere you go. MTN. Visit wearit4.me to send a message to someone.
We give you nothing but the best, we stay above the rest. More quality, more affordability. Kingdom Boost and Stationery. Everybody's going to the one and only shop where customer satisfaction is a guarantee. Kingdom Boost and Stationery.
Oh yes, with our 30 days credit facility with no interest charge, free delivery services, and our free consultation on setting up your office, Kingdom Books and Stationery is unmatched in our delivery of quality and affordable office essentials, equipment, and furniture.
Experience world-class customer service in all our branches in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Cape Coast, and Takoradi.
Call us on 0302-764-101
or visit our website at www.kingdomgh.com.
Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all office essentials and stationery. Terms and conditions apply.
Puma. 58, 70. Hey, Charlie. My network is really killing me. I have to pay my uncle's workers mobile money, but the charges alone, it's about 380 cedis. Charges alone just to send money? That's $10 of cement already, my guy. Listen, bro, you can save money on charges if you move to Vodafone Cash now. Vodafone Cash? But my network is... Hey, sending money on that your network, you pay. Sending money on your network to other networks, you pay. But guess what? Sending money on Vodafone Cash is free. Sending money on Vodafone Cash to all other networks is also absolutely free. No charges at all on Vodafone Cash. So tell me, what are you still doing on that your network? Massa, look sharp, then move to Vodafone Cash. Hey, make us change the SIM right now. Yes, sending money on Vodafone Cash to all other networks is now absolutely absolutely free. Send unlimited amounts of money as many times as you like for free. Just dial *110# now to send money.
The future is exciting. Ready?
Hey, I say, mix the cement in correct proportional.
Hey, contractor.
Hey, Baganye, what's your soul?
Yeah, Malande. Sorry, I say. When you attend the year of return, Ankasa. Hey, contractor. A danya wasting ye. Hey, what would you me feel it too much?
Who project here? Me friend gas them from top to down. If you are a gas them.
Hey, yes, solid pa.
Hey, you see gas them, man. If for supi no wodo. On your quality no question. Extra gas them cement biara. I will cook a crab be. Over 5,000 plus communities. And a gas them. I donations. SCC schools, I built the clinic. Now, when the packaging now, what's Shadara and environmentally friendly?
Never compromise on quality. Choose the value Gassam offers you always. Gassam, the nation builder.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us here on Newsnight. Ghana is set to officially receive travelers from parts of the world following the reopening of the Kotoka International Airport 3 months after its closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, you know that government at a press conference this morning outlined the stringent measures put in place ahead of the reopening. Listen to the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kumabwaji, who's been speaking at that briefing.
There's also a digitized health declaration form that people can fill. You can even complete that before you arrive. That will tell us whether your risk level, are you sick, have you had any situation, where have you traveled to, so that allow the port health to be able to properly assess the risk that you are carrying. The mandatory COVID-19 test on arrival, as they mentioned, will be done. And by the time you go through and get down to the port health before you go to immigration, your results will be there for them to be able to assess you to allow in. Children under 5 will not be tested because the risk is low. Air crew, transit passengers who do not require to enter the country will not be subject to the mandatory test at the airport unless they are coming and entering Ghana before they leave. So for the person who gets down there and is positive, the port health will now take over. They will walk you through, assist you through immigration so that to prevent any further contamination. There's a holding room that will be sent to, and then your bags will be put up. You'll be sent into, all of them will be sent to Ghana East Hospital for triaging, after which the necessary protocols, whether it's treatment, isolation, etc., will be instituted for all of them.
Now, Evans, you know that you are hoping to travel very soon, and
definitely,
and you have $150. But that amount involved in testing at the KIA has raised a few eyebrows, including that of Dr. Edward Omanebwama. In a tweet, he's suggesting that some people may be seeking to cash in on the pandemic. But the Deputy Health Minister, Dr. Bernard Okoboy, has been justifying the amount.
So when you go to a place like Zimbabwe, you pay about $210 for the test. In China, you pay about $150 for the test. And they are doing PCR, which is a very good test that identifies the virus itself. And in China, after paying $150, you have to wait for about 6 hours average before you get results. When you go to Togo here, you pay about €150, not dollars. In Benin, you are paying about €150. In fact, I just got the figures for Nigeria. You pay about $130. And not only that, you have to go to a hotel and wait for results, which can be 1 or 2 nights. So if you are paying about $100 for the night, you are spending close to $300 for just making sure that you are safe of the virus or free of the virus. So with all these considerations, remember that anyone coming to Ghana must have a negative PCR test. On the average in Europe, if you should enter a lab, not even the airport, to do a PCR test, you are looking at average €100.
Well, Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah has been allaying fears about fears of a scaling figures of following the reopening of the airport starting tomorrow. Listen to him outline step by step what to expect once you decide to travel to Ghana.
So the first thing is that if you're going to board an aircraft to Ghana, you must have a negative PCR test result, which you should have taken about 72 hours before you board a flight. Okay. And it's been communicated to the airline, so you will not be allowed to board if you do not have a negative PCR test within the last 72 hours before you board the aircraft. Okay. Secondly, when you land, you're going to be given a new face mask, so that we are sure. We don't know about the quality of mask you bought, wherever you bought it, but we have to be sure that you are doing what our laws require us to do. Now, when you arrive, you are now going to take a new test. This test is an antigen test.
Aside the PCR test.
Aside the PCR test, because some persons may have gone through transit or between the 72 hours and now you don't know what may happen. There's still some risk element there. So you will go through a second test. That test is an antigen test. And that one, you can get the results within about 30 minutes before you probably even pick up your luggage, etc., and exit the Kotoka International Airport. The Ghana Health Service, working with the port health authorities, will be on the lookout for persons who test positive. And for persons who test positive, then a case management dimension will now be rolled on to, onboard them and ensure that they are properly profiled and assisted, whether they'll go to a treatment center or they'll be treated at home or whatever the profile says, they can be assisted. And then those who test negative will now be allowed into the general Ghanaian population, but they will also be required to follow the necessary safety precautions while they are in the Ghanaian population. So this, for the international airport, now allows us to open without asking people to go through a 14-day mandatory quarantine. It comes at a cost to the persons who are coming into the Ghanaian jurisdiction.
But we may be opening up and receiving, passengers or those traveling from outside to come into the country. But we know that there are some countries also that have not opened up to all countries in terms of departures from here. What's the situation with that?
So that is also partly because of the perceptions about how endemic the virus is here in Ghana. You recall that in the last month or so, and I want to congratulate you, our colleagues in the media, you've been helping us to shape the conversation properly. As gradually we have all now understood issues better, we are talking more about the active cases today, or at least as at Friday, 1,059 cases. And as we continue to share that data with the rest of the world, it becomes clearer how low our numbers are, and now gives more conviction to some of the other jurisdictions that are still close to Ghana to open up and possibly reciprocate some of the measures we are putting in place, so that those who want to exit can exit while observing some of these preventive elements, so that they don't, assuming they are positive, also send a positive viral load into these jurisdictions.
But the testing, for instance, is it a private company that's going to undertake it, or still at the doorstep of a Ghana Health Service or Noguchi, for instance?
In the end, all our testing that is being done by various institutions, public and private, are still coordinated, as you are aware, by Noguchi with Professor William Ampofu, who is at the helm of it. It is a combination of public and private elements that are administering this antigen test at the Kotoka International Airport. And
we're going to have enhanced contact tracing, for instance, because you may test negative today, but we've talked about the incubation period. What measures have we put in place such that we're not relaxing on the contact tracing? Because if they go out there and the incubation period and all,
It's a very interesting question that you ask. So one of the things that we learned at the beginning was that, for example, data gathering when you arrive at our airport was literally manual. So when we had to lock down and go in search of some flights, one of the earlier things that needed to be done overnight was to now convert all the hard paper data of people's contacts onto a soft platform, so that it was now easier to send messages and track. Learning from that, today there is a parallel digitized system for gathering the data of everybody who is arriving and their contacts, so that should we, perish the thought, should we have somebody turn positive subsequently, it will be relatively easier to trace that person and their contacts, and therefore ensure that the necessary testing goes on there.
So if you're coming in, you must have done a PCR test, like you said, in the last 72 hours.
Before you board?
Before you board. So if you're going out, are you required to do the same?
It will be dependent on the rules that the country that you are traveling to put in place.
Okay.
So that's the Information Minister, Kojo Ponkrumah. We spoke on Beyond the Lockdown last night. Now, Evans, the main thing for you and I, we've been battling this out, the PCR and antigen test, since you're looking forward to travel. So from what we've heard from the Information Minister, you take the PCR test within 72 hours when you disembark. And then when you disembark in Ghana, you take an antigen test. But let's get the difference between these tests and all, because there's a lot of talk about it, together with the amount involved. We have on the phone a virologist and a senior research fellow at the Noguchi Memorial Institute, Dr. Kofi Boni. We're grateful for your time here on Newsnight. So explain to us, the ordinary Ghanaian, what is the difference between the PCR and the antigen test?
Right,
Yeah, thank you, and grateful for the opportunity. So when we talk about a rapid diagnosis test, which is the antigen test that we are referring to, basically what it does is it is detecting proteins around the virus. We call it the viral particles within proteins around them. So detect it, and within a matter of 15 to 30 minutes, you can get detectable results on a strip of paper that you put the clinical sample in it. It could be a laser or a scooping. But then when you talk about the PCR, that is the polymerase chain reaction, we are looking at a molecular test approach. In other words, you are now opening up the virus and targeting the gene inside the virus. Because the gene is very small, when you pick it up, you need to amplify it. That is where the PCR comes in, the machine comes. So it amplifies it into million-fold so you can see it. So in terms of the two, we call the PCR as the gold standard because it is very sensitive as compared to the antigen test.
So if the PCR is the gold standard, very sensitive, I take it within 72 hours of traveling to Ghana, why then do I need an antigen test then? Because if PCR is the gold standard, why then the need for an antigen test after 72 hours of coming into the country?
Well, I'm not sure why that decision was taken. I don't know. I can't speak. I can't speak about that because I think that is the decision was taken by the.
Unfortunately, we seem to be losing you along the line. If you would reposition yourself properly, then we can have a clearer connection. So I was asking you are telling me that you are not sure why I would have to take an antigen test after the PCR.
Sorry, I was trying to. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly.
I was trying to say that it's difficult for me. Hello?
Dr. Boni, I think we have a stable connection now. We can hear you. You were explaining your difficulty in why we are taking an antigen after the PCR.
Yes, I was trying to say that I'm not part of that. I was taking over. But if you take PCR and it is with 32 hours valid, I think it should be fine. Yeah, but if they're asking you to do an antigen test on a paper, that's I'm not sure why that was.
Unfortunately, we'll have to reconnect to Dr. Kofi Boni. He is a virologist and senior research fellow at Noguchi Memorial Institute. My colleague would try, producers will try and then re-establish connection to Dr. Kofi Boni. Then we'll get a better understanding because the explanation they've given us is that the antigen test is very fast and then we are hoping to get the results in 30 minutes. That's the reason why they say that we'll have to take it again. But government has been justifying the closure of the country's land and sea borders to human traffic as we prepare to open or allow entry of flights into Ghana starting tomorrow. The information minister, Kojo Ponkoma, told the media that the president is only going to reopen the border if he's satisfied that the threat levels of COVID-19 in such an action are minimal.
What the president does is to receive advice and examine the advice on our ability to mitigate the risk for everything we do. Government continues to examine, for example, the testing regime in our neighboring countries and the levels of confidence we can have in those as part of measures to examine how the land borders and the sea borders can also be opened. So at this stage, because we have confidence in how the international airport, its systems, and the risk levels can be managed, that is why this has happened. When we get to a point where we are confident that for the land borders same can happen, a decision will be made there. You are aware, for example, in the case of students going to school, because we are not convinced that pre-tertiary, the kind of mechanisms that are being put in place, will be able to protect our children. The president has elected to terminate the academic year and ask that next year the curriculum be adjusted to reflect that. So every decision he makes is based on a risk assessment of how well the risk can be contained. And if he's not convinced, he won't move there yet.
That's the Information Minister, Kojo Oponko. Evans, it appears we have Dr. Kofi Boni joining us back on the line. Hopefully we have a better connection to him. He's the lead virologist and a senior research fellow at Noguchi. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Hopefully we have a stable connection. So you are trying to explain to us the need for an antigen test after a PCR, because from our understanding, you take the PCR 72 hours before boarding, then when you disembark, you take an antigen. So scientifically, why the need for these two tests within the space that we're told to take it?
I mean, scientifically, if I am to speak about that, I would say that the PCR test within 72 hours is enough. I don't know why we have to do an antigen test which is less sensitive upon arrival. That one, I don't know why that decision was taken, so I can't speak about that.
Also, we understand this test will take 30 minutes. I mean, yes. I've just been doing a scan of reports of tests across the world, and it appears if that's accurate, then this would possibly be the fastest time you probably have a result when it comes to coronavirus testing. Is that the case? And what accounts for this expedition when it comes to the time?
This is a rapid diagnostic test. We call it the RDT, or the immunodiagnostic test, and this takes a very short time. It takes from 15 to 30 minutes. So the time that you are expecting is correct. It is not a PCR. The PCR testing would take roughly about 3 hours, because you need an initial 45 minutes to process the sample before the machine works on it for 2 hours. So for these immunodiagnostic tests, which we are talking about, the antigen test that we are talking about now, we call them the point of care test, and they take a very short time. So the 30 minutes you are talking about is expected. That is roughly the number of minutes that it takes.
It begs the question, how reliable then will be the results you get from this antigen 30 minutes test?
Yeah, but you see, I have established, when I started talking about it, that about 20% of the results are, if you look at the tests that have been done over the years, we have a varying sensitivity percentage between 34 to around 80%. So if you are looking at these figures, that means about half of the people who will take antigen tests, the results may not be correct. In other words, you cannot tell whether the person is actually positive or not. Apart from that, we have something we call the false positive result that comes with these antigen tests, or let's say the immunodiagnostic test. So the false positive basically means that because we have other human coronaviruses apart from the COVID-19, these antigens will be picked up by the antibodies that they have put on that plate or that paper. And it will come as if it is COVID-19, but it is not. It is other human coronavirus. So we call them false positives. So when you are dealing with these antigen tests, these are some of the disadvantages that you come up with.
I mean, going forward, it's going to become a policy from the 1st of September. If people get in, from a purely scientific point, what would you advise? Once a person gets the results and he says it's negative, we understand, of course, there'll be advice to still keep the protocols in place, social distance, or wear your mask in town. Will that be enough, assuming, as you suggested, that the 50% of those who tested may not have an accurate result? What additional measures can be put in place so that people don't go into the public thinking, oh, I've been checked and I'm cleared? That creates a false sense of security.
Yeah, that's correct. So what usually even the WHO advises is that if you have an antigen test that is negative, then you have to do a confirmation or confirmatory test with a PCR assay. That is what is recommended. So if somebody is coming in with a PCR result, a certificate that within 72 hours he's done the PCR and the person is negative, and you come and test again and it's negative, fine. But if you want to do a confirmatory test, then you do the PCR, because there has been about 50% of samples that we have tested on antigen assays that were negative, but upon PCR came up as positive, because it's a highly sensitive assay, PCR.
If I may ask, in terms of the cost, though, the PCR test, at least, I mean, from the private ones that we know have been advertised, costs anything between $80 to maximum $100, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. How much does the antigen test cost?
I don't know what they are doing, but I know about between $10 to about $20 for one test. Yes.
But we are told that it's costing about $150. I don't know if you've heard about it. At least that's the announcement.
Maybe so many other things come. If you are buying the kit itself, but maybe I'm sure they are charging administrative and also maybe the personal protective equipment and all that they are using. They will factor it in. Yeah.
Okay, but curious though, finally, just before we let you off, Dr. Bonnie, so in your submission earlier, you talked about the PCR at least being the gold standard, but it appears we are practicing the reverse. Instead of the antigen first before the PCR, which will be the last layer, it appears we are doing the PCR, then the antigen. Is that what it is?
I thought the minister said that you'll be allowed to travel into the country with a PCR negative test report.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
So that means they have done the PCR. So the PCR comes before the antigen that they are doing it now. Okay. But what I'm saying is that the antigen as compared to the PCR is the gold standard.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. That's lead virologist and then also a senior research fellow at the Noguchi Memorial Institute, Dr. Kofi Bonnie.
That is some education.
Yeah.
I mean, on the issue of PCR versus antigen test there. I mean, but what do you make of what you've just head there? I want to hear from you. Send me a WhatsApp 0244 340 437.
Well, when we return from business, we have more on the easing of restrictions. We're hearing from the National Association of Private Schools. They are lashing out at government over failure to consult widely before its decision to suspend academic calendar until January 2021. You have any children in SHS2 and JHS2?
I have a brother who just finished actually the SHS. There's one who's just also entered.
I'm in a dilemma now. I don't know if my daughter is going to JHS2 or JHS1 because they completed the semester on Zoom. So I don't know what's going to happen. And yeah, respect. Let's do business. Let's do business now, George.
Crazy.
What do you have in business?
Well,
George?
Coming up in business, hoteliers see staff laid off being recalled following the opening of Kotoka International Airport for international travels. A National Investment Bank assures establishment of a National Development Bank will not affect its operations in any way. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all your office essentials. And First National Bank, we are the bank that understands your business. First National Bank, how can we help you?
Puma Drinks, ready to add flavor to your life? Puma Drinks, bursting with so many flavors, you just can't have enough.
You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, hoteliers are optimistic that staff that were laid off as a result of COVID-19 could be called back. Now, this is based on the planned reopening of Kotoka International Airport for international travels from September 1, that is tomorrow, which actually the sector has been hit badly by as a result of this layback and as a result of COVID-19 restrictions. It's the hope of these hoteliers that as the airport is reopened for international travels, that could positively impact on the operations of the sector. Let's hear from Dr. Edward Akanyamike. He is president of the Ghana Hotelier Association.
This is a significant move for the sector in terms of recovery, especially for the upmarket hotels. And bear in mind that patronage of the upmarket hotels has a way of trickling down to the lower market hotels. You see, with the recent ease of the restrictions, I must say the sector is picking up, albeit at a very slow pace. And patronage is still quite low and highly inconsistent. So it is not that well with the industry, but we're looking forward to better days. So long as the opening of the airport to international travel will be accompanied by arrival of visitors to the country and increase in occupancy rate at hotels, they will have no choice but to recall their staff who have been on temporary layoffs. So yes, I'm sure some of our workers and our staff are rejoicing over this announcement because it certainly means that some business will come in. And once there's business, we'll certainly have to get our staff to work.
Dr. Edward Akanyamike is actually the president of the Ghana Hoteliers Association. Now, still on this sector, the National Hospitality Association of Ghana, which is actually made up of restaurant and pub operators, are accusing government of not doing enough to support the sector. According to them, even though government has actually set up a stimulus package, most of them are yet to benefit from this facility. They are still pushing government to extend some release to them in terms of taxes and also the payment of their utilities as well, because they believe that the current situation is putting a lot of pressure on them in terms of their members. Let's talk about banking. The National Investment Bank, NIB, has given the firm assurance that moves to establish a development bank will not affect its operations in any way. Government is currently working to establish a National Development Bank, but there are fears that the move could actually make NIB irrelevant, as government, being the main shareholder of these two banks, might be struggling in terms of which institution to fund in terms of supporting with their critical funds to grow that financial institution. But Managing Director of NIB, Samosapon, tells their business there is no cause for alarm.
I think the original thinking of the government was to merge NIB and ADB into a development bank. I understand a technical committee was set up to evaluate the process, and the recommendation of the technical committee was to set up a separate national development bank because both NIB and ADB had moved so much into retail banking, and pulling them back was a bit of an issue. So that actually brought about the establishment of this National Development Bank. This National Development Bank is going to be a wholesale bank. So all banks who meet the criteria would apply to the National Development Bank if they needed long-term loans or long-term money to fund long-term projects. And so the National Development Bank is not going to be competing with any bank, including NIB. They are not going to compete with for customers. If NIB repositions itself and we have, let's say, a project to finance a 5-year project, and we need money, which is long-term, then we will go to the National Development Bank and borrow that money at a reasonable interest rate, that long-term money, and then invest that money into that project so that we match funds. Today, most of the issues of the banking industry is taking short-term deposits, which is typically 24 months, and putting that money into long-term projects. And that also has caused the issue of not having enough financing for long-term projects. NIB basically will be positioned in a way that as we progress towards funding industries, we are going to definitely have project requests for projects that are long-term. And then we'll fall back on the National Development Bank if we needed extra funds.
Managing Director of National Investment Bank, Samuel Sapon, still on banking, Stanbic Bank has signed an agreement with the German government fund, that is KfW, to help support small businesses in the country. This will see KfW advance some €6 million to Stanbic, which the bank intends to advance to small businesses that have been hit badly by COVID-19. We understand that about 40 small businesses are expected to benefit from this whole arrangement. Let's hear from Managing Director of Stanbic Bank, Alhassan Dani, who has been giving us more details about this initiative.
It was in the process of discussing these important sustainable banking initiatives that we had this opportunity to work with the German government through KfW to do this important work. In total, we were looking to support over 40 SMEs in a meaningful way to ensure that they primarily retain their employees at work, and that they are able to have financial, they can overcome the COVID difficulty and retain their businesses and hopefully grow the businesses, but most importantly, hold on to their critical employees over this difficult period. We think that in effect, this will be affecting nearly 12,000 jobs.
Alhassan Dani is Managing Director of Stanbic Bank. Now, one of the largest cosmetic brands in the country, Nivea, is advocating for more corporate bodies to show appreciation to health workers and frontline workers in the country for their hard work. According to the company, their commitment to the country since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic has been phenomenal and deserves the commendation. Country Manager for President of West Africa Producers of the Nivea cream, Olivia Bendov, actually made the call when the company donated some of its products to the Ghana Health Service, the distribution of health workers in the country.
and healthcare workers have been sanitizing their hands, they've been washing their hands while taking care of the COVID-19 patients, and therefore their hand might have become very dry. And so we want to care for them and show them we care for them with the Nivea cream tin.
Why at this time when cases seems to be coming down?
You always say thank you when somebody has done something, right? So that is the full purpose we're doing this now. Earlier in the pandemic, we actually donated 1,500 liters of sanitizers when really the need was around sanitizer. So, and that was a donation to help with the need at that time. This is a thank you for the community.
Country manager for Basin of West Africa, that is producers of the Nivea cream, Olivia Butson. And that's all for business on Newsnight. Back to you, Evans.
And when are you traveling?
Do I have to do the PC? For what, $10?
Yeah, more than enough. You're more than $150. So.
Oh, really? Because she's going to sponsor me.
You.
My sponsor. Do the test?
Yes, please.
Emefa has money.
Yes, we know that.
She's the richest girl in the multimedia.
Yes, of course.
Amen. Thank you very much, George. We are free. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Let's talk about Japan now. Because the governing New Patriotic Party.
Well, they've held a press conference taking on civil society, but also talked about the fact that they'll be ready to engage also over the controversial Japan mineral royalty deal days after the finance minister and information ministers all dismissed similar proposals. The finance minister, Kelu Furiata, told the media briefing last week he discounted a letter from the CSOs after he found the words in it, he says, were very painful. Earlier, Information Minister Kojo Ponkroma told Joy News government is under no obligation to engage the CSOs.
The issue that really was hurtful and made me discount the letter was when they ended saying that we are trying to stop elite capture, which essentially meant that we here are doing this for ourselves and we have some shares in that. So if that frames the mindset in which it was brought, it makes it really very difficult to see whether it is genuine.
Ordinarily, when the government of Ghana, with the greatest of respect, is going about its transactions and goes to Parliament and gets approval, it does not necessarily go out there to consult CSOs. In all humility.
But speaking to Joy News, Latif Idris today after addressing a media briefing in Accra, Director of Communications of the MPP, Yabu Abin Samoa, said they will be ready to engage. He, however, insists the deal is good for the country.
We're going to engage everybody. That CSO, somebody in the CSO should suspend that image at the final cost. CSOs are all parties. They are not the final cost. Nobody in the governance process is that way. It's about engagement, it's about compromises, it's about understanding the ultimate benefit. That's why I still insist that we are seeking a partnership that looks at the larger strategic picture. We don't want a situation where Ghanaians won't believe that Ghanaians can. Engagement is important. I concede that perhaps so far engagement hasn't probably as effective as they would have wished. But that doesn't close the door.
But meanwhile, civil society group Imani Africa is questioning the quality of scrutiny cabinet did to the Japan Minerals royalty agreement before approving it.
Well, President of Imani Africa, Franklin Kuju, says it's surprising that the Attorney General still had questions about the transaction months after cabinet approved the deal.
The funny thing though is the cabinet approved this deal in March 2020.
Yeah.
When as late as May 28, 2020, the Attorney General was complaining of not having seen the four main agreements involved in the transaction, besides the relationship agreement. What exactly was presented to Cabinet to review and approve in March 2020, when in May 2028, Attorney General was still complaining that she's not seen the document? I mean, how can you go into an international deal like this and your own chief legal officer is still complaining that a Cabinet decision that has been taken 4 or 5 months earlier has not been seen, she's not seen all the details. In any case, the Deputy Finance Minister also suggests that a direct royalty streaming approach, which we've also suggested, was referred to the Finance Ministry by the Vice President, but then they did a review indicating that Ghana's royalties would be better valued at 700 million. So the question we asked was, what was the name of the company that made the offer for the 700 million? Who did the valuation? Was there a report produced? Was this report shared with Cabinet? Did Cabinet or any committee of Cabinet review additional offers from these royalty streaming companies to benchmark this approach of creating and listing securitization vehicles as a way of raising money? The vast majority of royalty streaming transactions, which are similar to what we want to do, we have seen the value of royalties for an ounce of gold at almost 2.5 times what the ministry is projecting to raise. And then you wake up and tell us that you have expertise for 80 years, and so nobody should talk. If it belongs to your father and your mother, you can do that. But this belongs to the country. So go and set up your own private business and then go and list it the way you want to list. And nobody will ask you any questions.
Well, he also questioned why the Attorney General abandoned her earlier objection to the allocation of royalties in US dollars.
What happened to the Attorney General's claims that the allocation of royalty income in US dollars will be a breach of the Ghana Bank Act? Why has this not changed in the final agreement? Why did the Attorney General back then down? Is the agreement saying that the final money paid to the paid will be in cedis? Is that what has happened? Because the final agreement doesn't say so. And we also say, for instance, that the Deputy Finance Minister suggests that there's no country in the world where parliamentarians have been given access to transactional details of a planned listing of state-owned assets. And we point him to what has happened in similar jurisdictions, like in Singapore, where Temasek Holdings, which is the most famous Singaporean sovereign wealth fund, did in severally published scrutinized documents gave to the parliamentary committees ahead of the listing on their XGS. So it's not true that these things are so sacrosanct that you don't even need our parliamentarians to know.
So that's President of Imani Africa, Franklin Kujo. Well, the CPP flag bearer, Ivor Greenstreet, has also been speaking about this. For him, the deal must be suspended. He spoke in a yet-to-be-aired edition of Joy Prime TV's current affairs program, dubbed On the Record.
The Japan royalties deal is a bogus deal, which is a shocking aberration, which must be suspended as much as possible. And it shows you the ineptitude of our parliament that such a thing could have passed through it at this point in time. But Ghanaians should not be surprised, because it was the same NDC and MPP who collaborated with the passing of stability agreements for Newmont, Goldfields and Ashanti and these other large mining corporations to have their royalties reduced to as low as 1.5% from the gold that we get from this our precious soil. We would even review, first of all, through Parliament, renegotiate all contracts we have with these mining enterprises.
That's the CPP flag bearer, Ivor Greenstreet.
Well, let's stay with the issues surrounding COVID-19. The president's announcements yesterday, one of them had to do with schools. The National Association of Private Schools say it's disappointed government did not consult them before its decision to suspend the academic calendar until January 2021.
Now, this comes on the back of President Akufo-Addo's announcement, like you said, on resumption of schools, which will see students in JHS2 and SHS2 students returning to school in October. However, those from kindergarten to JHS1 will be going back to school in January 2021.
SHS2 and JHS2 students to return to school from 5th October to 14th December 2020. JHS2 students will be given one hot meal a day. The Ghana Education Service has decided to postpone the remainder of the academic year for all nursery, kindergarten, primary, JHS1 and SHS1 students. The next academic year will resume in January 2021.
Well, some parents have been reacting to this announcement. Most of them who spoke to Joy News welcomed it.
Maybe the children cannot take care of themselves, like kindergarten to pieces. Some of them cannot take care of themselves. So the only thing they can do, they should stay at home till everything pass over. Then they'll continue.
It will be good for our children because of the coronavirus. Because of Yareninti. Say. Social distancing.
Really, I mean, concerning our education in terms of the COVID-19, I think what the president said is laudable, because the children are young, and then the rate is reducing bit by bit on daily basis. So I think when the children are kept at home as a parent, it's better the time that they have fixed on next year will be favorable for all of us, so that we may not encounter any problem at all.
very okay with the president's decision. Even if he had opened it, my kids wouldn't have gone to school. Because I see it's not safe for the kids to go to school. Because you can't compel these children. Even at home, being the parents, it's difficult to compel them. How much more their teachers or whom they are not with. So there's no way I'll let them go to school. It was a personal decision, so I'm 100% support of the president's decision.
So, however, President of the Association of Private Schools, Dr. Damascus Turosong, says they find government's announcement shocking, given that they were supposed to submit their inputs to the Committee on Reopening of Schools on 3rd September.
We are aware that the vast majority of our children are in the rural areas. So no one should tell us that there's been some effective virtual learning or that postponing reopening until January is going to help us curtail the spread of this virus. I don't think those are tenable arguments.
So at this point, the president has spoken. We were expecting the committee that was tasked to work on this particular issue to come out with a response by middle or getting to the end of September. September
21st.
Exactly. And for you, hearing the president make this announcement ahead of that work by the committee to be made known to all of us, what do you make of that?
It's very shocking, to be honest with you. Very shocking because this committee was to present its report on 21st September. As private schools, we have a rep on the committee that is working on the reopening. And we had been asked to table proposals to the committee on 3rd September. While we were in the process of coming out with our proposals, the president comes and makes this announcement. And even more shocking to us is the fact that we are told from the president's delivery that stakeholders, relevant stakeholders were consulted in arriving, GEF consulted relevant stakeholders in coming out of this decision. I don't know which relevant stakeholders they are. If private schools were not consulted or were still in the process of being consulted, I don't know who came out with all these timelines and schedules that were put out for us. It's really been disturbing to us.
That's the president of the Ghana Private Schools Association, Dr. Damascus Turosong.
You're still listening to Newsnight. It's on Joy 99.7 FM. Now, the Amnesty International, they've charged the police service to place a bounty on the head of the runaway suspects involved in the assault of 4 women accused of witchcraft in the Savannah region. Country Director of Amnesty International, Robert Amafo, believes such a move will cushion residents who easily volunteer information about the whereabouts of the suspects. Already 5 suspects involved in the act have been arrested and remanded into police custody. We'll hear from Amnesty International, but first to a report filed by Savannah Regional Correspondent Isaac Nonya.
The victims sustained serious injuries on their heads, arms, legs and faces. 3 of them are receiving treatment at a health facility. One of the victims, Maria Ibrahim, sustained deep cutlass wounds and lost some of her fingers. She says she was chased with machetes and other sharp weapons from a residence. Fearing for her life, she ran to seek refuge in another house, but was attacked together with her host who attempted to intervene. Maria's brother says his sister is innocent.
Butchered, slashed with cutlasses. So we are pleading with the authorities to come out as early as possible to arrest these perpetrators. In our family, we have never had such situations.
Physician assistant at the West Gonja District Hospital, Thomas Asako, is part of the team treating the wounds of the 60-year-old woman.
The wounds on her head were very deep, and she even found some cuts on her right arm, the head. According to her, she says she knows them, she knows those ones, but she didn't mention them to us yesterday.
There are 5 suspects in police custody. Here is Acting Public Relations Officer of the Savannah Region, Sergeant Ajekum Owusu, with details of the arrest.
5 people so far, and this morning we embarked on arresting the perpetrators. We've arrested the Dagomba chief of Sumpini, and he is a linguist, and 2 other accomplices for being part of those who perpetrated the crime. They actually took part.
They took part?
Yes.
The chief is a linguist?
And the other suspects we are looking for.
We can now listen to Mr. Amafo, who is blaming the recent wave of attacks on what he says is government's lazy approach in dealing with such issues.
And when we talk about
being strong and very strict on the matter. It's about ensuring that the systems that already exist work. So, for instance, in our visit to the Kafaba village, and then also to certain parts of those places where these incidents happen, it's clear that when people are arrested and they are put behind bars, we have family members, traditional leaders, pleading on their behalf and asking that these issues should be addressed at home. And therefore, we don't see anybody really getting punished for committing crimes against individuals. And therefore, it also empowers people to do that. So, and we believe that the only group of people who can change the face of this is government, especially the agencies that are responsible, which include the Ministry of Gender, the Ministry of Interior, and stages that's telling us what is happening. And for that matter, it is only through social media that we are able to see. From our interaction, we realize that it happens almost every day, where women are abused and because they are suspected of being witches.
We know that some of the suspects are at large. What do you expect from the Ghana Police Service who are investigating this matter?
First of all, we want to see that, one, they work fast to get these people, very fast, swift to get these people. Secondly, that when they are caught, it is made public for everyone to know that these people have been arrested. A ransom should be put in place as soon as possible, but a very handsome ransom, not as we saw in the Kafaba issue, where a meager amount was put on the head of anybody who for anybody who finds the person. A very attractive amount, which will enable us to find these people very quickly.
That's Country Director of Amnesty International, Robert Amwafu. Let's bring in the Acting Police PRO for the Savannah Regional Commander, Jakumo Usu. We're grateful for your time here on Newsnight, sir. So, have we heard anything from the woman that fled the scene?
Please investigate. Hello?
We're listening to you, sir.
Good evening. Investigations are still ongoing, and we are closer to these suspects.
When you say you are closer to these suspects, well, how do you mean, sir?
I mean, it's a police term. Being closer to the suspect means all the information we are gathering is pointing to where the person has run to. And so by closer means not quite long, these suspects will be arrested.
And a bounty will not be necessary for that to happen quickly?
Come again?
I'm asking if a bounty on the head of the suspect will not help you find her quickly, or him or her quickly.
We appreciate anything somebody could do to help the police to get these people as soon as possible. We appreciate anything, my sister.
We are grateful for your time. That's Ejekum. He's the Acting Police PRO for the Savannah region.
President Akufo-Addo is optimistic his government's industrialization drive is on course as he cuts sword for the construction of a foundry and machine tooling center here in Accra. The facility, located at the Atomic Energy Commission, when completed in 9 months, will have the capacity to manufacture spare parts for the automobile, rail, oil, and gas, as well as agro-processing and other relevant sectors.
Take the requisite measures geared towards the establishment of foundries and computerized machine tool centers that will be used to manufacture tools, spare parts, and instruments to support sectors such as agriculture, industry, oil and gas, road construction, and the automotive industry. These facilities and associated workshops will be equipped with tools and machinery to provide agro-processing machines and equipment, farming implements, and spare parts for maintenance and repairs. The facilities of this center will provide technical support for policy initiatives of government such as One District, One Factory, which is already in place in many districts across the country and is providing jobs for many of our youth. More importantly, the Foundry and Machine Tooling Center will put us in a position to develop and grow the talents of skilled and innovative young Ghanaians who graduate from our schools, colleges, and universities.
Now, to make science and technology integral in the overall development of the nation, the President announced the fashioning out of a bill to back the deployment of science, technology, and innovation in key sectors of the economy.
Science and technology can only work when sufficient resources are committed to critical activities that can yield the desired results on a sustained basis. It is for this reason that I've promised to devote up to 1% of our nation's GDP to research and development in the area of STI. Another essential component of the framework is the establishment of the National Innovation and Research Fund to ensure that there is adequate funding for research and development and for the development of the nation's STI system and infrastructure.
President Akufo-Addo. Evans, let's head to the Upper West regional town of Fori. And
there, the town previously notorious for cases of guinea worm disease is saying now that the new water source provided by Promasidor Ghana Limited will save lives. The company, which produces cowbell as part of its 20th anniversary, constructed a borehole to aid work at the clinic that is the only healthcare center there. Here's a report by my colleague, Justice Bedu.
We do OPV services, and we also do the community services. That's run outreach. If we need water for the facility to run our services.
Our animals, in the dry season, it's difficult for the animals to get water. And mostly, you see that at the dry season, you see animals dying.
In Furo, like in many parts of northern Ghana, dancing is a popular way of saying welcome, and women do it with perfection. Today, their song literally says thank you for the gift of water.
When we had the information that cowbell was coming to do a borehole for us, we were really happy. Even if house A is supposed to come and fetch water and put in the container, you don't come, we ourselves can fetch the water and bring it.
We have water now just by the health facility, and this is adding to the 10 borehole we have in the community.
I will say thank you to cowbell, and God bless them so much.
Water that saves life. Many thanks, Promasidor, for saving lives. But before we go, we have our Arrival Life tip for today. Evans, on longer trips, you're bound to get tired. Whenever you're feeling drained, it's better to stop and take a break.
Usually, we try to, brush off our tiredness by turning on the music or rolling down the windows and continue right along. But this can be a reckless choice. Pull over to a safe location or have a plan to switch drivers by stopping to allow yourself to rest physically or mentally. You're helping to prevent accidents. That's how, and that's how you keep alive. Arrive Alive. Arrive Alive is brought to you in partnership with Toyota Ghana and Bedrock Insurance.
And that's it for tonight's edition of Newsnight. Up next is That's My Opinion with Nanansa Kwao. The topic for tonight is a nation majoring on the minus. You want to stay for That's My Opinion right after Newsnight. I am Emefa Apawu.
And my name is Mensah.